When we look out at our communities today, we see division and polarization on the rise, economic and social mobility stagnating. We are in urgent need of individuals and organizations who can show the country a better way, who understand and demonstrate the principles of empowerment in ways that can have a ripple effect that can change our entire culture in this country. In fact, we need such exponential empowerment that we see a cultural sea change if we're gonna have any chance of moving the needle on any of the indicators that we care about. Now, what does it mean to see every person empowered? That's what we're gonna talk about today, so let's dig in. You see, the prevailing approaches out there, solving problems in our communities, even with the most well-intentioned people that are out there, they address problems with what we would call a paradigm of control. They try to control the situation from the top down. They want to get other people to do it their way. They want to try to fix broken and deficient people. They see individuals that are experiencing poverty or other social barriers as fundamentally broken and in need of their top-down help, their sweeping solutions that can solve their problems. But we know that doesn't work. It's not how people operate. It's not what helps people to thrive. And so we need instead a different paradigm, an empowerment paradigm that centers around the dignity and potential of each and every person, that centers around how to discover better ways to help people to be the best version of themselves. Start with a deep belief that the people they serve are capable of extraordinary things, of overcoming the most significant barriers, transforming their lives, and realizing their full potential. Now, these empowerment organizations, what they do is they are social entrepreneurs. They rally their communities around the innovative approaches that they're taking that maybe nobody else would have ever imagined. So the question is this: can individuals and organizations drive that kind of impact? An impact that goes well beyond their direct impact. How can we leverage the work of the incredible social entrepreneurs that are out there to truly transform the way the entire country thinks about and tackles the problems we're trying to solve? How can we get the country to think about and tackle problems with a paradigm of believing in and empowering people? We want to see every person empowered, always and everywhere. Empowerment has to do with principles, paradigms, and community. We're going to unpack each one of these, starting with community. You know, one of my favorite authors, a guy named Dick Cornell, he wrote a phenomenal book called Reclaiming the American Dream back in 1967. He'd say, community is a consequence. Community is a consequence. They're a consequence of the actions of the people within the community. And more fundamentally, they're the consequence of the norms, beliefs, expectations, the way we interact with one another based on the ideas that drive our behavior. So then the question is this: what makes the world go around? What shapes our communities? It's ideas. It's ideas. It's the ideas that people use to take action to solve problems. When I look at what's broken today in the social sector, I think about the 40 million plus Americans who are experiencing poverty and the over 100 million who are near poverty. I think about the scourge of the addiction epidemic and the loved ones that we're losing every day, the mass incarceration and ridiculously high recidivism rates that are harming so many. I think about our broken and polarized communities. I mean, my goodness, just look around our country today, the last couple of election cycles, division is deepening and it's happening fast. When I think about all of those pain points, I come back to what are the ideas that are shaping our interactions with one another? And how have those interactions fallen short of the principles that drive human progress? And importantly, we got to ask, what are those principles? Because those principles are really the underpinning of empowerment. First is a belief in the inherent dignity and worth of each and every human being. This is the dignity principle, that each and every person has incredible potential and that we've got to believe in that potential if we're going to drive transformation. Second, mutual benefit. We believe in a culture of mutual benefit. Everybody's got something to contribute. And we enable people to gain and succeed by helping others to succeed. Third, openness, a culture of openness, right? This is the idea that closed systems, they tend toward entropy. They collapse on themselves. They fail, they die. But open systems flourish. So we need to be open to new ideas, new people, new ways of doing things, new discovery, right? Fourth, bottom up. Change happens not from the top down through planning and control, but it emerges through discovery and entrepreneurship from the bottom up, from those closest to the problem. Bottom up's not about hierarchy, right? Bottom up is about where does change come from? It emerges, right? Rather than dictates and plans and control. And finally, self-actualization. Who we can be, we must be. People gain meaning and purpose by creating value for others. And our goal really should be to help each person to be the very best version of themselves, to unlock their gifts, to contribute. Now, these are just 5 of the principles of human progress, but perhaps the most fundamental. The principles that when we practice them, they drive an empowerment paradigm that stands in stark contrast to the ideas of control. And when you set them up like that, I mean, look, no one's going to be like, I approach my work through control. I just want to control everything. Everyone do it my way. It's my way or the highway. Give me power. I need power over other people rather than empowering them. Yeah, no one talks like that, right? But this is perhaps one of the most important insights that I can share with you today. It's not us, the empowerers, versus them, the controllers. This is us versus us. Control is the fundamental human tendency in every one of us. This idea that we know the answer. If we can just get everyone to do it our way, we can get right to the results. We can move directly there. If my ideas win, then we can solve the problems. I know the answer. You see this always and everywhere. I think about it for me as a parent. This is often the trap that I fall into. I try to control my kids rather than empower them. I say, because I said so, and because I told you to, and because you'll be punished if you don't do it my way, rather than explain to them, why is this the best decision, right? Why is it better for you? Why is this better to create value for others? And so I fall into the traps of control versus empowerment when I'm parenting. Maybe nowhere is this more obviously happening than in the nonprofit sector. A ton of really smart, really well-intentioned people, and the prevailing approach to nonprofit management and funding practices are top-down control. Things like evidence-based philanthropy and scaling what works. It's a lot of really smart, well-intentioned people that believe if we just study the problem, we find the thing that works, we can then just replicate and duplicate it all over the place, all over the country. You see this with things like random control studies, right? Driving what gets funded and what doesn't. The problem is that this top-down control approach, this idea that people are like patients and social services are like clinical treatments or drug regimens, it's just a totally flawed mental model. People are complex, and we can't treat them like they are just inputs in the strategy that we plan from the top down. It doesn't work, and that's why even when you look at random control studies, fewer than 2% of the studies out there demonstrate any meaningful impact in people's lives. It's because we're doing it wrong, right? Top-down control rather than empowering people. Instead, we need a dynamic ecosystem of social entrepreneurship, always and everywhere, discovering what truly makes a difference in people's lives, in particular those people's lives that are right in front of that organization. And we need to see more discovery and entrepreneurship from the bottom up. That's what empowerment looks like rather than control. But even the most well-intentioned people in our sector are falling into the traps of control. Well, I'd venture to say that if you're watching this video right now, if you are working with Stand Together Foundation, you are doing something that can truly change the entire country. Because what you're doing, that none of us could achieve on our own even, is demonstrating that when people rely on these principles of human progress, when they put on this empowerment paradigm, it works better. Your effectiveness as an organization is a platform for you to advocate for people to change the way they think about and tackle problems. And when we do that together, we become an unstoppable force, a movement that can change the way the entire country operates. And look, you might be thinking about social change as trying to convince someone to pass some legislation or convince some big philanthropist to pursue an agenda, but that's not what this is about. This is about changing what we believe. Do we believe that people are capable of extraordinary things? Do we believe that we can empower them by helping them to tap into their unique gifts and talents to contribute? Do we believe that there's mutual benefit when we do that? Do we believe that when those principles are practiced, we all benefit? That's what we're here to do. We're here to change the culture to reflect those beliefs. Where do we start? Well, first, we have to put a common language around these ideas, and we have to have a common identity in these ideas. We need to name the fact that we want to be empowerment organizations and we want to avoid the traps of control. That gives leverage to each of our organizations when you can tell others that this is who we are, this is what we do. It helps you with your staff, with the people you serve, with your board members, your donors. It separates and makes this group set apart for our commitment to the principles of human progress, the principles of empowerment. The second thing is that if you want to be an empowerment organization, you need to be practicing the principles of empowerment intentionally and holistically. It's going to happen in a couple of key ways: management and measurement. We want to flip it to where the customer is king in the social sector. The customer being the people you serve and the communities you help to transform, and then how you empower your employees to meet the needs of those customers. Let's start with measurement for a second, because we really believe one of the big cultural problems in the social sector is that unlike in the for-profit sector where the customer is king, in the nonprofit sector, everyone's focused on serving their funders, the bureaucrats and the program officers that are funding their work. It's backward, right? Nonprofit organizations should be in the business of removing the barriers that are facing the people they serve, the communities that they help to transform. And so you have to ask yourself, why is this? Well, it's because unlike in the for-profit sector, we don't have prices, profit, and loss. We don't know whether or not we're meeting the needs and wants and desires of our customers because we don't have prices, profit, and loss. Now, many have just shrugged their shoulders and said, well, there's nothing we can do about that, so let's measure outcomes using those random control studies we talked about earlier, or just measuring good intentions, the outputs, the hard work of our teams. And we know that that's failed. It's led to incentivizing more of the same broken approaches that are not truly transforming lives. So at Stand Together Foundation, with partnerships with many of you, we've pioneered a customer impact survey methodology by learning from some of the best customer service approaches in the for-profit sector that have to rely on measuring value in customer interactions, even where a purchase decision and prices, profit, and loss are harder to come by. Now, that methodology has become a transformative approach that goes directly to the individual experiencing poverty and asks simple questions like, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend these services to a friend or a family member experiencing similar circumstances? Or a scale of 0 to 10, how much did this organization transform your life for the better? We've learned a lot. That question really separates the transformative organizations from the not as transformative. Or one of my favorites, we say we're in the business of human empowerment, and I believe we should have measures for that. So one of the questions we're asking, on a scale of 0 to 10, I feel empowered to overcome barriers in my life. We're seeing stunning results across all of these questions with each of your organizations. Now, we did a panel survey nationally, 30,000 Americans, and we asked them, have you worked with a nonprofit over the last 12 months? And if they could name a nonprofit, and many of them named your organizations, we could follow up with a bunch of questions and attribute these questions to your organizations. Now get this, empowerment organizations, groups that are part of the Stand Together Foundation Catalyst Network at large, on a scale of 0 to 10, scored a 7.4 compared to the average nonprofit, which got just a 5.3, a massive spread on this question of feelings of empowerment. What's even more stunning about those stats is that the people that you serve are facing significantly higher barriers. They report much higher levels of financial insecurity, social isolation, depression, anxiety, substance use, you name it. So seeing those transformative results that the people you work with are truly empowered, it's exciting stuff. So now imagine if your direct survey work with customers enables you to start looking at benchmarks across many other empowerment organizations. That 7.4 on empowerment might not sound great until you realize that others in your space are probably getting 2s and 3s, right? So as many organizations get together and choose to measure these things together, we begin to build a movement of benchmarks and standards across the sector. It's not hard to see how when hundreds of the most effective and innovative social entrepreneurs in the country decide to measure the same things and demonstrate how their work is getting significantly superior results than the average nonprofit, that it's going to begin to create a sea change in how other individuals think about measuring and understanding value in the sector. And remember, measurement is important because it is a means to an end to flipping the incentives in our sector to how are we going to better meet the needs and serve individuals experiencing barriers as our customers rather than on our stakeholders. The second practice is around management. Now, if you want to empower people, you have to empower your staff. You have to empower your peers. You have to empower the people in your organization to better empower the people you serve. And that's why we teach principle-based management. If you want to drive empowerment to the people you serve, you need to empower your employees not just to deliver your services, not just to deliver your program, but instead they've got to be finding and discovering new and better ways to meet the needs of your customers each and every day. Now that's going to require a management framework of empowerment versus top-down control. Now finally, we come back to community. We're asking this of you. We need you to be ambassadors of empowerment to other individuals and to other organizations and to the social sector at large. We need you to be catalysts for empowerment in the broader conversation that our country is having. So our hope and expectation would be that every member of your team see themselves as part of an empowerment movement that is so much bigger than just your organization. They, each of your employees, can change the way our country thinks about and tackles our greatest challenges. Though our organizations are all doing very different things, we're really all doing the same thing. We are empowering people. When we compare your results to everybody else, off the charts. This is the last and most important point here. Your effectiveness is so important. The more transformative you can be to transform more lives in deeper ways, it's critical to this movement because your effectiveness is your platform. I want everyone in the country to know your organization's name. I want them to know about what you're doing. And I want them to get involved in what you're doing, but that's not the real reason. I hope it happens because I want everybody in the country to learn about the insights and principles that make your organization thrive. If every organization were to share their story with everybody in the country, our country would look nothing like it does today. It would be a place of empowerment always and everywhere. The stakes in our country are high, and they're getting higher. People are hurting in our communities. As that hurt grows, we're getting more and more divided as people blame each other for the pain and suffering they see. And as I said, you're doing the most important work in America right now because you are person by person transforming lives in a way that offers hope and optimism for what good looks like, what a better way looks like for our country. And here's the really exciting part. When we work together, when we stand together around this empowerment paradigm, we can change our communities and our country so that we can see every person empowered.